guys about on the video the other day. So if you just bear with us, and I'll bring it over. What do I hate? PowerPoint. Every time. Every time. Never fails to disappoint. I guarantee it's always going to screw up. Chat amongst yourselves for a second. Have a bit of a brain break. And it's totally gone. Useless. Right, okay, so we have resumed. Okay, now the next thing we need to understand is that when I've been talking to you guys about the law of demand, we've been saying, right, this is only the relationship between price and quantity. All those other things remain constant. We ignore them. It remains equal. We call it, even give it a Latin name, ceteris paribus. But in the real world, all those things do matter. Okay. So all the other things is what we're now going to look at now, and we refer to that as when we talk about a movement of the demand curve, not a movement along. So as I say, it does get a little bit confusing. So, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now sometimes we have, we are given questions or we have to analyze situations whereby it's not the price we're looking at, the price stays the same, but the level of demand either increases or decreases because of other factors. Okay, P, Q, this time we'll do demand for light bulbs. Light bulb movement. Okay. So when we are talking about a change in demand or a shift in demand or a movement of the demand curve, what we're actually referring to is we're talking about all the other factors that affect demand, but not price. Okay, price is the law of demand. All the other stuff doesn't have a law. Okay, it's all the other factors, and what we can see is when we have these other factors changing. Oh, I've written it there. There we go. We either have a shift of the actual curve. Okay, it can either go to the right or it can go to the left. Okay. Now the other factors. These are either tastes, income, complementaries, or substitutes. Okay. Now the best way to refer to these, to remember, I always call them ticks. Okay. So all of these will affect how much demand there is of a product, of a good, or a service. Okay. So when we talk about tastes, very simply, it's fashions. Okay. What comes into fashion, what goes out of fashions. Fashions are all choices that we make. Now you might think about something like, well, what about advertising? Advertising is absolutely right, but advertising leads to fashions. Okay, you might think about, all of these different choices that we make because of fashions. But yeah, everything here is taste. Okay. Now when we're talking about income, we're talking about us as consumers, how much money we have to spend. Okay? Can anyone remember the term that we call a certain type of income that's left over after we pay all our bills and all that. Disposable income. Brilliant. Okay. And our disposable income goes up and it goes down. So when a government sets an income tax, for example, it means that consumers, if the income tax has gone up, it means that we have less income. If it's gone down, it means we have more income. And this has an effect on our demand curve. Okay. So if you're talking about income, it could be so income tax is probably a good one. Okay, or any type of tax. We're going to look at a lot of tax later on. Okay, but there's lots of different types of tax, but very often that will affect our income. Okay. Now, when we're talking about complementaries, okay, so these are two goods. I'll say goods that are consumed together. I think of the goods that are consumed together. Pardon? Popcorn and butter. Oh, that's in their production, right?
Milk and cereal.
Pardon?
Milk and cereal.
Milk and cereal, good one. Bread and butter, would be a good one. Fish and chips is another one. All of these things, okay, they have a relationship, okay, and they are collectively, we call both of these things related goods, okay. So the complementaries, it means that if they're consumed together. So, for example, if we've got bread and butter, if the price of butter goes down, okay, if the price of butter goes down, it tends to have a knock-on effect with bread. It'll mean because butter's gone down, the demand for bread might go up. Okay, will go up in fact. Okay, so they have this sort of link. Okay, substitutes. Okay, so these are goods that are consumed in place of each other. Okay, so for example, butter and margarine. Don't even get margarine anymore. Do you know what margarine is?
Yeah.
Yeah? No? Oh, okay. Does we still get it? It's like this weird, in fact, it's really unhealthy. It's horrible stuff. But anyway, so butter and margarine, or butter and olive oil, that's type of idea. Yeah. Coke and Pepsi is the classic one. So if one isn't available, that's what you would buy as an alternative. Okay. So if there's a change in price of either a complementary or a substitute, it will have a knock-on effect with the demand of the product that you are looking at. Okay. So how do we simply see this one? So when I'm flipping up the graph here, very simply, what we have the same idea, but this time, if we see, obviously this is this to plus infinity, I guess. If we see an increase in demand, very simply, we have a shift to the right, a movement of the demand curve down there, and we would call this, any ideas? What would we call this? Remember, if we move this from P to P1, Q to Q1, we're not showing any shift of that. What are we showing shift of here? What would it be called? Anyone out there, give us something.
D1.
D1, thank you, Emily. It's just hiding over there. You knew it all along. Okay, so we call that one D1. Now, what this is basically illustrating is that demand increases at one price. So what we also might show is we can see, okay, at one price, at P, this is illustrating Q, and we'll call that Q1 as well, okay? So what our demand curve is showing is that the overall demand for this product has increased, so much so that even at the same price, the price hasn't changed. Remember, the price is not what we're looking at. The price hasn't changed, but It's led to a shift in the demand curve here, or a movement of the demand curve, and that goes from Q to Q1, shifting it from D to D1. Okay. Now, once again, when we're creating these graphs, remember, dotted lines are P's, are Q's, they all need to be labelled up. Okay. One final thing I always say, a lot of people tend to do this as well. And I've seen examiners pull people up this, they do that. Guys, that can be unclear. We will go on to see that later on, that can mean something else. All right. So when you're drawing your line, always draw it parallel to your Q-axis down here. All right. More than anything, they probably won't pull you up for it, or you won't lose a mark. I have seen people lose marks for it, but it can also get very messy if you're doing that, because it does mean something else. All right, that we'll go on to see a little bit later. Okay, so when we are looking at these situations, if we have got a movement in the demand curve, if it's an increase in demand, goes to the right. If it's a decrease in demand, it obviously will come back here. Okay, or be a move to the left. Okay, so now, so if we, for example, we take a situation. Oops, Daisy. So, if I'll give a situation just in a tick, but once again, we're illustrating it. Original P and Q, arrow showing the movement of the demand curve, parallel with the Q-axis. So this one up here, okay. Dotted lines as ever. You don't always have to show that, but that is the point that we're illustrating here. Okay. So once again, if we get it nice and accurate, and get into the habit of doing that, it should be all right. Whenever we're looking at these movements of the demand curve, they're a little less complex on our illustration than the others. Okay. Right. Okay, so just talk you through a scenario. Now, if you've done some of these in the workbook, you might have seen something such as this. So what we can see here is, if I say, all right, there has been an increase in income tax. Okay. So if we haven't seen an increase in income tax, how this is going to affect here, we would illustrate this. Let's just say again, demand for light bulbs. So this will affect any product, good or service. Is that P? Is that Q? Is that demand? Okay. So what we're seeing, an increase in income tax. Just before we even jump into this one, who would say there's an increase in income tax? Who sets that? The government. Yeah, the government set it. Why do they set it? Why would they set it? Why would they set it? Right.
To be able to make sure that they can cover all the costs that they budget for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe they recognise they want to put some extra services in. They want to build new roads. They want to build new schools, new hospitals, whatever it is. They realise this costs money. Right. Okay. Everyone's going to pay a little bit more income tax. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So they've raised the income tax. So that means that most people in society that pay income tax will have to pay a little bit more. So because they've got to pay more on income tax, it means the money that they have in their pocket to spend on whatever they need to spend, i.e. light bulbs, has now minimised, okay? Has now decreased. So therefore, what's going to happen to the demand of light bulbs? Colby, what do you reckon? People got less money in their pockets.
It would go down.
It would go down. Absolutely right. Okay, it would go down. Reuben, so how would we show this on here?
Maybe bring a line
Underneath?
No,
Left or right?
left.
Left. Absolutely. Yeah. Good point is made. Thank you for making that little error there. But yeah, we'll all say it. Don't write underneath. It's either to the left or it's to the right. Okay. Hold on, one second. So what we would do, we'd illustrate it. There we go. D1. Ryan, question.
Would it really make a difference on something like light bulbs, because people need to see whether they're for or against?
Good point. Good point. But yeah, it would. That is yeah. Yes is the answer. Okay. Yeah, believe it or not, it's income. So every product in society would have a knock-on effect, no matter how often we use them. He's made a good point, because some products are more necessary than others. So you would argue that possibly not. Level 3 economics, that is. What that would show, right, FYI, is how steep the gradient is, basically. But that's level 3 economics. We're going to do level 1. So just bear with us just a second. What we would therefore show is therefore a shift to the left going that. Now, if you really wanted to show the effect, what you could do is illustrate is that at the same price, all of a sudden, our quantity demanded has gone from Q to Q1. Okay, so there has been a reduction. Okay, so this is what we refer to as a change in demand. Now, as I mentioned before, so we will call this one a change in demand, okay, or a movement of the demand curve. And this is, it is not the law of demand. I can't stress that enough, guys, because this very often gets confused, all right? It's not the law of demand, but this is all the other factors excluding price. Okay? So when we're looking at understanding demand, what the key things we need to understand is, right, the law of demand is the relationship between price and quantity demanded. This is illustrated in our graph by a movement along the curve. Hence, we see a change from P to P1 to Q to Q1, whereas all the other factors, that are ticks, taste, income, complementaries and substitutes, this is illustrated by a change in demand, and that's a shift of our curve either to the right or to the left, dependent on the situation. Okay, so that's enough, I think, from me for the time being. I'm going to hand it over to someone very capable of explaining this in much better terms, and that is my American friend who's very good at drawing stuff. But I can't even see if is this frozen. I can't see. Anyway, let's just see where we're going. Is that frozen? Yes, it's frozen now. Okay. Right, okay, guys. Mike, can you just hit the lights for us, please? Right, guys, so just sit back and watch this one. So she's just going to go over again what we've just looked at, the difference between the two. So just listen out, sit back, relax, and watch. Where's the thing? Oh, I can't do this upside down. I'm going the other way around. Oh, I can't do that one. Right, is that going? Oh, why is there no sound? What's wrong with the sound today? That's why. Let's try it now. Right, have a little relax for a couple of minutes while we get over these technical issues. That's because that's turned off. Why was that turned off? Right, there we go. Right. Okay.
What happens to demand if price goes up? Answer, nothing. Look, if I started out at price P1, then I would see that the associated willingness to purchase, or quantity demanded, is Q1. Now, price goes up to P2. What happened to the demand line? Nothing, but we do see a new, lower willingness to purchase, quantity demanded, at Q2. The demand itself did not change, since both of the combinations, P1Q1 and P2Q2, were already part of the existing demand curve. A change in the price of the product itself will never change the underlying demand, only the quantity demanded, shown by a movement along the existing demand curve. Is there anything that could alter the underlying demand, causing it to move either to the right, indicating that there is a greater willingness to purchase even without a price change, or to the left, indicating a decreased willingness to purchase even at the same price? Well, yes. A change in any of the other factors other than the product price will fundamentally alter the underlying demand. Like what? Well, any of that other stuff. Okay, for instance, if I stick with the housing market example, a change in the price of housing will not shift the demand. Rather, it will cause a movement along the existing demand for housing, or change in the quantity demanded. But what about mortgage rates? Even if housing prices are unchanged, an increase in mortgage rates leads to a lower willingness to buy at all prices. And of course, lower mortgage rates would lead to an increased willingness to buy at all prices. What about changes in related markets? For example, take a look at the link between the market for apartments and the market for houses. Initially, the price of a typical apartment is P1. Q1 apartments get rented, and there's some demand in the related market for homes. But what happens when apartment rents increase? Sure, some folks will just pay the rent increase, but others will start thinking, is this worth it? Wouldn't it be better for me to put my money into my own home instead of giving it to a landlord every month? Such individuals now move over to the housing market, causing a greater quantity demanded at every existing price. That is, the market demand shifts to the right, showing the effect of a change in a substitute product market. What about, say, changes in income? Typically, you would expect that as a person's income rises, that person would purchase more goods and services. If indeed this is the result, that is, an increase in income leads to an increase in demand, then the product is a normal good. Occasionally, however, an increase in income may result in a decrease in demand for a particular good. If this happens, you're dealing with an inferior good. Typically, inferior goods are low-budget items where if you had more money, you'd buy something else, something nicer, instead. You know, ramen noodles, mac and cheese, canned tuna, generic brands, that type of thing. We could even use the housing example again, where demand for apartments, or living with your parents, falls as your income rises and you look for a home of your own. In this example, the homes are a normal good and apartments are an inferior good. What about expectations? From 2003 to 2005, investors expected huge increase in home values, especially in the Phoenix metropolitan area. What happened to the demand for houses? Because everyone expected higher prices tomorrow, there was a rush to buy the homes today. Okay, one more example of a demand shifter. What about the price of complementary goods, commodities that must be used in conjunction with this product? In the housing example, wouldn't homeowners association fees affect the home buying decision? Perhaps an even better illustration of complementary goods would be gas and cars. In the 1990s, gas was cheap. Oil was $22 a barrel and gas was about $1 a gallon. And demand for cars, especially trucks and SUVs, was high. In 2008, oil hit $140 per barrel and gasoline hit $4 plus per gallon. How did this affect the demand for cars, especially the gas guzzlers? There is a critical difference between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. Can you distinguish between the two? A change in quantity demanded is a movement along the existing demand caused by a change in the price of the product. A change in demand is a shift of the entire demand curve caused by a change in anything that affects your willingness or ability to buy other than the product price. Next time, supply.
Right, okay. It will be for us next time, supply, actually. Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm just going to ask you to do, that's enough from me. Back in your books, I did set you some bits and pieces on Friday. If you got from all of that stuff, I'd be very surprised. But it was up to page 31. There's lots of different examples of how we shift or movement along the demand curve. Guys, as ever, rarely do I actually go through these. What I expect you to do is have a go at them and then have a flip at the back and see how well you went in terms of what are the actual answers. Okay, so I'll hand that one over to you. Guys, if you've not got your books, grab someone else's, but do not write in them, please. Okay? If you haven't got your books, make sure you bring your books now and leave them here. The end of the lesson. We're up to page 30.
It's the one that watched it. I can tell you that I remember the whole time.